Welcome, and thank you for having me here at CSL Santa Cruz. My name is Katie Rocks-Brigati, and as some of you know, I've been here before. I got my start right here, but first I want to take a moment and just send some light to our beloved Reverend Alice, who was having some health difficulties this morning, and we just know the wellness and the health and the light that she is. So, a little bit about me. I am a science of mind practitioner. That happened right here on this stage. So being here feels like a little bit of a warm hug for me. This is where I started. In fact, I even have my CSL Santa Cruz. So I found out that I'd be speaking this morning at 8:30 last night after an 8-hour class on Zoom about organizational management. I was ready to take a nap at noon. None of that happened. So when I went to look up the theme for the month, it was stepping into the unknown. I'm like, perfect, right? Totally. Another fun fact that you may not know about me is that I am a virtual practitioner. That means that most of my practice is online and through different mediums, as far as Facebook and that type of thing. And my clients I see regularly on Zoom. So this is completely out of my comfort zone. And I also know that this is exactly where I need to be. So thank you for being here and supporting me. I wanted to talk a little bit today about fear and how it can be transformed into faith. I guess we're all friends. I'll give you a little bit more background about me. I actually didn't grow up in religion. My son is 5th generation Santa Cruz, so I grew up here in Santa Cruz. And in our family, religion wasn't something that was celebrated. Spirit, that's something else. But what ended up happening for me is that I developed an actual fear of religion. And part of that comes from the fact that, now it's, in this audience, with this audience, we all understand and relate because we love Santa Cruz, right? But back in the 70s and the 80s, it was a hard place to be different. My family was unique. My family, I had two moms, and we couldn't talk about that. And that was one of those things that, I think helped start some of the fear. So, my people were kind of, hippy-dippy, fun-loving. I'm sure we had a bus or a big Volvo that we all drove in with stickers and sang Free to Be You and Me, and we loved just who we are. We can do that here in Santa Cruz, not the rest of the world. So I fell in love with peace, love, happiness, and just all of those sentiments. And I still love those things. But what was hard for me to reconnect with was religion. I felt spiritual. I didn't actually feel the religion. I couldn't believe in the religion. And so I remember in the 1980s, I'd have these little girls at school, and I think almost all of them were blonde. Nobody looked like me. That's just what happens in a beach town, right? And these beautiful little girls would invite me to church, and I'm like, okay, Mom, can I go? And she's like, yeah, whatever. So I go to church, and the Sunday school, And they were throwing candy at us, like throwing candy, literally for just being there, for just showing up. I'm like, God rocks. This is amazing. This is just amazing. And I remember coming home and just going, yeah, I'm going to be God, Jesus, this is it, yes. And I remember when I asked my mom a little bit more about God. And this is a moment that's still fresh in my mind. She took me out. We had the redwoods. We're looking up at the stars. And she says, sweetie, I'm not really sure if I do believe in God. And she said, what I do believe in is infinite love. And I asked, what's infinite love? And she saw infinity is where everything, there is no stop, no start, it continues, it exists forever, just like the stars in the universe. And that's the love I believe in. That blew my 7-year-old mind. I physically can remember that moment. And that was the moment that I fell in love with Spirit. I didn't need a name. It was just who I was. So, up until my late 20s, I want to get back into the fear and faith part. Back into my late 20s, this fear of God and religion was still very present with me and held strong. I knew my truth, but growing up, it wasn't always acceptable to talk about what was really happening in my life, things that I loved. I loved my family, but we couldn't say anything. We had to be quiet. And what I knew, the only thing I knew about religion was that our family was not okay, and that the God and Jesus people wouldn't like us one bit. So that kind of closed down religion for me. But what it did, when I come back to talking a little bit more about that fear, I really got in touch with what non-believers or people who have alternative things, or people who have been wounded by churches, by faith, by times when they said, you can't be baptized because of your sexual orientation, the color of your skin, for whatever reason. There was so much division that it was unsettling. And it caused me to wonder, what is it about faith that makes people unwilling to have it? And I started just kind of thinking about our society, and I've had plenty of time to be on the computer and to watch all kinds of things I never ever dreamed I'd watch, like, for instance, YouTubers and reality shows and all of these kind of things. And when we turn on the TV, I really got into the reality shows. I have no idea why. I will forgive myself. But I was watching a lot of influencers, too. So I don't know if you've ever heard of a woman whose name is Kim Kardashian. She is a beautiful, beautiful woman. And she is lucky enough to get paid to have people follow her around with a camera and do nothing. Now, I sounded judgy there, and I'm not judging, because really, what a wonderful gig if you can get that. That's awesome, God bless her. But when I'm watching that, and I look out my own window and I see the inequity. I see the people suffering in my own community, at my kids' school. Things aren't really fair. So for non-believers, it's that kind of injustice that creates that objection of, okay, if this is a God thing, then how do you expect me to believe and have faith in something that is so unbalanced and cruel? This is just, it doesn't take much of a brain to figure that part out, right? And it is hard for us with faith to come back from that one. And so we breathe. And in science of mind, we know the oneness, the infinite of good, the infinite of God, to be loving, non-judgmental, forgiving, and we know that our lives are expressed as love and light. That's in each of our affirmative prayers. We're all, as Lucy said, we are all spiritual beings having this human experience. And we feel that. And then there's Kim. So the question becomes, what does this have to do with faith? Are the rich and famous influencers, do they have more faith than us? Valid question. Maybe. But I think it has a whole lot more to do with fear. So, unfortunately, Kim and I are not besties. And what I can conclude from her social media and her reality show is that Kim has most likely never experienced the fear with money. She was born into it, generations upon generations. And while she might have plenty of other things in her life to fear or whatever, money is just not one of them. That's just not her gig in this life. So when we remember that she too is also a spiritual being having a human experience, we can reflect back and know that we all have our things to work on. We all have our places of fear. And that's when faith steps in. So when I began this journey, one of my teachers, Dr. Reverend Deborah Johnson, said, "There's no such thing as fear." She would say, "The only thing to fear is a lack of separation." That took me a while to understand, because I was convinced that my fears were absolutely real. I used to be able to list them off with enthusiasm. I'm afraid of rats. I'm afraid of geese. I'm afraid of somebody that I love dying. I'm afraid of never finding my purpose in life. Another one of my teachers, Rob Underhill, he used to come to this church way, way, way back. He taught me the acronym false evidence appearing real. And that stuck. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. I can hear this, I can feel this. And as I, started my journey in practitioner training and science of mind, I realized that what Rev D was saying really is true. Because when we start to question what's behind fear, we find that there's a false belief. There's a false belief behind whatever we fear. I'm not afraid of finding my purpose. I'm afraid of not being enough. And when we unlock that fear, that's when we get to replace it with the truth of the love of the divine, the one, the unity, the complete package that we are all living. But how do we get there? So I start by saying, I am a piece of shining light. I am brought here to illuminate the path for everyone to uncover their truth and brilliance. Okay, that was a little embarrassing. For people who had secondhand embarrassment, I could see. And what was that? What that was is me flexing my spiritual muscles. That was me speaking in affirmation with conviction and practice, speaking this truth over and over and over again until it stops sounding silly and it becomes who I am, the fabric of who I am. And what happens then is the fear disappears. When we think we know it all and we're not willing to ask those deeper questions of ourselves and what we believe, or why we're afraid of something, or if we're not willing to ask ourselves how it feels when someone tells us their prayers have not been answered, we're no longer living in alignment. We are no longer open at the top. One of my very favorite quotes from our founder, Ernest Holmes, is, I live in the faith that there is a presence and power greater than I am that nurtures and supports me in ways that I could not even imagine. Just let that sink in. It nurtures and supports us in ways we can't even yet to imagine. And times are changing. Everything's changing. The possibilities are unlimited. One thing I know about faith is that it's not static. It does require practice. And we need to sharpen and strengthen those faith muscles all the time, especially in the times that things are good. Because if we don't, we won't have that strength when we're tested. Everyone has been tested with this pandemic, this worldwide phenomenon that is here and has affected everyone. And I think that's one of the places where we've had a lot of false evidence appearing real. So the question comes back to, how do we keep fear from blocking faith? We know that faith is built up from three things: belief, acceptance, and trust. Whenever we forget that, even for a moment, fear enters our mind and pecks away at the faith that we had already developed. Since we know in Science of Mind that every thought that we have is a prayer, right? We know that everything that we put out is heard. So it is more important than ever to carefully monitor our thoughts. And that's not an easy thing. So again, that's why those faith-flexing muscles need to be tuned up. I read this a book not too long ago, and there's a little passage I want to share with you. The book was called My Grandfather's Blessing. There's a great difference between defending life and befriending life. Now, defending life is often about holding on to whatever we have at all costs. Befriending life may require us to take great risks and to let go over and over and over again until we finally surrender to life's own dreams of itself. Isn't that the big T truth? That surrender, that letting go of attachment to what we think the outcome should be. I thought the outcome of this morning would be me sleeping until noon. Nope. I'm here, stepping into the unknown. It is not easy. But we have the tools, and that's one of the things I love so much about this teaching, is that we do have tools to help us get through. One of the best things I think we've all kind of been doing this through COVID is trying to find positive things to look at. Those little kitties and filling our Facebooks with flowers and all of that kind of stuff. But there's more that we can do internally. And I kind of had an aha moment about this when I was thinking about Ernest Holmes. And one of the things, one of my favorite things that he says is, hold fast before you those moments of high resolve. So if you close your eyes now, can you see one of those moments? Those moments in your life when everything was in alignment. Those moments in life, perhaps the first time you saw your child, the first time you saw the love in your puppy's eyes, any of those moments, the moments when everything felt completely aligned. And those are the moments of high resolve. And in retrospect, when we look back, sometimes even the most difficult of times can have those hidden moments of high resolve in them, mostly in retrospect. But I think the more we practice, it gets easier and easier to come to that moment. So I wanted to end with a little challenge for you. If you're willing, it's okay if you're not. I'd like to share with you one of my favorite spiritual practices. And I know, it's probably one of yours too. Journaling, right? In Signs of Mind, we journal about everything. We've got our dream journal, we've got our vision journal, we got journal, we got everything. So what I'm asking you to do today is to add one more tab to your journal for successes, for those moments of high resolve. And write them down, every single one of them. Like Lucy was talking about the flowers in her garden. We all know that feeling. Write it down. Because the truth is, times are confusing and we get lost sometimes. Remembering those times is a powerful tool and a powerful way to flex your spiritual muscles. So if you want to know what's in my journal, under moments of high resolve. It's that moment with my mom in Santa Cruz Redwoods, looking up at the stars. That moment that I knew myself as Spirit moves in, as and through me, feeling that moment and the power of possibilities. So that's my favorite part of my journal. I can't wait for you to give it a try and see what kind of things come up. So that's about all I've got today. Just that reminder to flex our muscles now and then, even in the good times, and know that we are all part of something bigger. So thank you. Thank you for being here today, and I really appreciate it. Let's just take a moment, and we'll just go into some silence. We'll just relax into our seats. Feeling this moment of high resolve. This is a moment of high resolve. Because I know that there's only one thing happening right here and now, and that is the power and the presence and the love of the divine, known by so many names. Today I choose to call that force. And the source of the force, I choose to call that love. And this container of love is so large that absolutely nothing can exist outside of it. And that's who we are. My life as Katie is a wonderful expression of spirit. And what I know to be true is that the lives of everyone within the sound of my voice and beyond is also an expression of that love. And as we move through this week, stepping into the unknown every day, knowing that we are held because we have our faith muscles fully in tuned. We know that we are part of something much bigger. And as that joy moves us through our week, I bless everyone. And I stay in such gratitude for the moments that I've had of high resolve and the gratitude of these teachings. The knowledge that there is only one of us here. So thank you today to this amazing, loving community, this loving hug I've felt, knowing the wellness and the health of our beautiful Reverend Alice, knowing that this community, Santa Cruz CSL, is held. It is held and lives and prospers. And with a full heart and a full knowing of these absolute truths, I release my word. And if you'll join me in saying together, so it is.